It can start at 9:15 for the 9:15 forum because we've got lots of good stuff to go through. So that's your two-minute warning, 2-minute welcome, not warning, welcome. Your 2-minute welcome. Yeah. Well, good morning. It didn't occur to me until I was midway through announcements at the 8 o'clock service, and I didn't say it out loud, that this meeting would happen in a room that wasn't a room last year at the annual meeting. So it was fun. There was a little bit of necessity. The choir really needed to be in the church to rehearse today because they didn't have the organ on Wednesday night. So we thought, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to do it in the new chapel, and this is great. All of you over here making way for new folks. I mean, it's amazing. Well, let's pray, and I'll call this meeting to order. The Lord be with you. Let's pray. Almighty and ever-living God, ruler of all things in heaven and earth, hear our prayers for this parish family. Strengthen the faithful, arouse the careless, and restore the penitent. Grant us all things necessary for our common life, and bring us all to be of one heart and mind with your holy church, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. At least once a year we should pray for the careless and the penitent, right? We should. We're all of those things. We're all of those things. Well, welcome. We're going to, here's a quick view. We've got a lot to go through. It's going to be fabulous. I'm doing this. This is my thing. It's too much to keep track of. We're going to hear from a senior warden, treasurer, and endowment. We're going to hear about what's to come in the Lenten preaching series and get an update on our construction projects, and then I'll say a few things as we close off. It's been a remarkable year, and I can't wait to hear how these folks help us remember it. Ben Bobing's going to come up first and give us our senior warden's report. There he is. Yeah, right there.
Well, first I have to say what an honor and blessing it was to serve as senior warden with such incredible people, and I can't say enough about the fantastic leadership. There's just with Paul and Scott and Catherine, there's just the balance there is incredible, and how they complement each other just with their strengths. It's really an incredible thing to kind of watch. So I'm just honored to have had the experience. So let's talk about the year 2024. We had an incredible retreat lined up. However, Old Man Winter thought a little bit different about that and dumped a lot of snow and ice, which was great for sledding, but not good for meeting. So we pivoted, but isn't that what Calvary does really well? Pivots. When we have a challenge, we pivoted to a Zoom retreat. And so with phase one of the renovation completed, we had a lot to unpack, and that also included adding our new awesome members. And that was Allison Parker and Bill Entry and Bill Bangham, Christina Ross, and Mary Jane Vire. So we had a lot to talk about. One thing about meeting via Zoom, typically when you meet via Zoom, it's not the best experience. We've all had a lot of experience about doing it. I kind of do it on a daily basis. And I can tell you, after even teaching a class to college students via Zoom, you always leave a little empty, like they just weren't really all engaged. But this was quite different. It really was, because Scott and Ardell led our team, and they really posed some incredible questions for us to brainstorm on. You know, what went well with the first renovation? What challenges did we face? What could we learn from them, and how can we apply those moving forward? And kind of the big thing is, what do we need right now? I have never seen a chat box fill up so fast, and I've never seen Scott move so fast as he was grabbing our ideas, and they are throwing them up on this big, huge piece of paper, and we really just had this amazing thing to look at by the end of it. And it really kind of helped us kind of align our values and focus the direction that we wanted to go. So one of the things that we conducted was that, you know, after the renovation, that Calvary Episcopal Church is a community of resilience. And I know that's a shocker to everyone. But it just showed how well we did during that first process, and just we were able to adapt and pivot and flex when we needed to. There were kind of 3 different priorities that we really wanted to focus on for 2024. Communication transparency regarding the next renovation phase, particularly concerning practical matters such as Wednesday night activities, parking, coffee hour, elevator access, children's chapel, and most importantly, bathroom facilities. So we knew there were going to be a lot of questions. We also wanted to do a broader community engagement and information sharing about church programs and activities, and creation of opportunities for parishioner involvement and maintaining connections during construction, because we knew we wouldn't be here a lot, so we'd have to find other places to do things. In addition to those areas, we also discussed many things throughout the year: the 87 Adams Memorial Site, the Endowment Committee funding of the Portco share, which was awesome, earthquake insurance, again, sacred ground, safety training, and the Diocesan Convention. So all those things we really kind of wanted to cover throughout the year. One of the things that I have to kind of spotlight is, you know, we really wanted to have social opportunities, you know, for everyone during this time. And I can't say enough about Clay Wammel and Jill Piper. They played a huge role in helping provide those opportunities. And so much better them than me, because that is not, if someone gives me the chance to stay home, I'm going to stay home. I'll just tell you that. So that's what's so great about the vestry, is you've got all these diverse skill sets, and they thrived there. Also wanted to acknowledge, you know, the gatherings that we had throughout the year because of them. You know, Reverend Catherine and Stephen Bush, Terry and Betty Jo Delaney, Peg and Dan Wall, and Kate and Coleman Connell all gave wonderful parties that really just kind of helped everyone kind of stay in touch with each other. The other thing, too, is I have to just say what an incredible time this was to be on the vestry, because, you know, we forecasted a lot of angst. We forecasted a lot of worry, questions about where is this going to be and what's that going to happen? How am I going to do that? And is this going to go on? All these questions just kind of kept surfacing with us. And the thing about it is, what we realized was this is such an amazing thing and so much to look forward to. It really kind of trumped all that. It really trumped the worry, because there's so many awesome things to look forward to. And I can't tell you how exciting it was after every vestry meeting, getting to tour the area, and led by Scott, who knows just a little bit about construction and carpentry work, right? And like every stop we'd have, we'd be like, you know, well, this way, this much. So the only way they could get this out is if they had to use this tool and do this way and this way. And of course, we're just like, oh, and I'm really like that because I'm kind of at Lowe's every weekend. I'm getting into trouble. So it was really, really an amazing experience. So just, you know, serving on the vestry was a type of involvement that I honestly I'd never considered. You know, I joined Calvary with my wife Allison in '98. You know, she was on the vestry, but that she's a vestry person, so that made sense. So when I was asked, I was a little nervous about it, but it's been the most amazing experience over the past 3 years for me, and I've learned so much, and I'm so thankful. So lastly, I just wanted to thank, you know, the outgoing vestry members, you know, Kathy Awesome, Lynn Grice, Shannon Tucker, and Bree Wallace. I think I can speak for all of us when I can just say it's truly an honor and a blessing to serve as senior warden. So thank you.
That's great. Yeah, you can have that. And there they are. Deep gratitude. Deep gratitude for these folks who have offered themselves, their creativity, we're going to hear a great verse from an epistle about how all the diversity of gifts are important to the body of Christ today. So I'm grateful for these 5 people who've served for 3 years. And please note, be looking around, whether at yourself or your neighbor, if vestry service seems like something that you or someone you know might feel called to. Next fall, when we start looking for folks, that committee will be looking. So keep that in mind. Eric's going to give us another look. Eric Ball, our treasurer.
There you go. Thank you. Okay. Hey, everyone. My name's Eric Ball. If I haven't met all of you yet, I've been treasurer for 3 years. This 2025 will be my 4th year as treasurer. Wife and I, Sarah, we've been members here at Calvary really since we moved, I guess, back to Memphis in 2013. We've got 3 little kids, 2 of whom have either terrorized or delighted you in the pews, depending on your perspective. And one is a newborn who's at home with the family right now. Let's see. I really enjoy being treasurer of Calvary. It's an honor to serve. It's a pleasure to serve. Really a handful of reasons. The first is that Calvary is in fantastic financial position. We've got cash on the balance sheet. We've got only just a little minimal bit of debt related to the construction. We're blessed to have a really well-funded endowment. And we have so many folks that dutifully get their pledges in on time and help us budget, and we'll talk about all that. The second really is the group of people I get to work with, Margaret McLean and Steve Smith in the finance department, obviously all the clergy, the wardens, and vestry. And third, I think if you look back in the history of the church all the way back to the 12 disciples, treasurers have not always covered themselves in glory. So for me, I think the expectations are quite low. I just have to show up, do a good job, don't betray anyone, and hopefully I'll be, everyone will think I'm doing a good job. Now, I know for some of you, when there's a page full of numbers like this, your eyes start to glaze over, and you might want to walk out of the room. Others of you are mildly curious, like, hey, I would love to know a little bit more about the church's finances and what's going on. And then for others of you like me, like the numbers jump off the page and they sing and they tell a story. I'm going to try to thread the needle. There will be some details, but I'm going to try to keep it light and quick and punchy. So today we're going to talk about our performance in 2024 versus budget. We'll look at the sources of revenue for the church. Where does all that revenue come from? How does it get split up? We'll look at pledges, sort of an update on where we are for 2025 pledges. And finally, I'll close with an update on the finances behind the capital campaign. David will talk about the construction. I'll give you a little bit of update on the numbers, and then we'll go from there. So, okay, orienting ourselves with this chart. Far left column, that's how we performed in 2024. Those are our actual results. The middle column is the budget. That's how we budgeted. So when we prepare our budget every year, we get all of everyone's pledges in, and we look at the pledges. We look at our other sources of revenue that we know we can count on, and we think, okay, this is how much revenue we have, and so let's budget our expenses accordingly. And we budget to break even every year. We want to spend all the money that we take in on ministries and to serve the mission of the church and serve our community. So last year we budgeted $2.3 million in revenue, and we budgeted $2.3 million in expenses. Now, you'll notice we actually ended up doing a little bit better. We did $2.44 million in revenue, and we were able to spend $2.378 million in expenses. So that means we spent a little bit less than we made. We had a little bit of an operating surplus, which is a good thing. The church is going to have a need and a use for that cash. And secondly, there's a really, really good and interesting and important reason why the revenues and expenses were a little bit higher. And the main driver of that was community ministries. So every year the church budgets about $46,000 in community ministry support from the church. So $10,000 comes from the endowment, $36,000 comes from Calvary's operating budget. But Christine and others are out raising money for community ministries. We raised about $100,000 extra for community ministries, which really I think is a great testament to the importance that our parish and community places on that work. That means we were able to spend more than we had initially budgeted. So about $100,000 more in revenue from community ministries. We spent about $50,000 more than we had budgeted. These categories, so buildings, grounds, worship music, diocesan covenant. Diocesan covenant that's actually essentially like our tithe to the diocese. It's based on a calculation, a historical revenue. We owe that to the diocese every year, so there's no real getting around that. But these are all the categories that we spend money in. I will say that if you look at it a different way, personnel is the biggest expense for the church. So the personnel have been allocated to their various functional areas in this presentation, but personnel overall is about 1.3 million. So we spend 1.3 million on salaries, benefits for personnel, and that's really the biggest expense area for the church is all the wonderful people that make this place able to function and serve our community. The next biggest expense area really is buildings and grounds. This is a historic building. This year was a little bit difficult to budget for buildings and grounds because, half the building was shut down under construction, but that's insurance, it's utilities, it's maintenance. Those are the big buckets there. So yeah, it was a great year financially, and the church is in good shape. All right, so where does all the money come from, that $2.4 million? This big blue section, it's a little over 50%, that is pledges. So every year when you send your pledge cards in, we take the pledge cards and we say, okay, we expect to get this much in pledges, and we budget accordingly, and then people at Calvary pay their pledges. So we have a pretty good track record of paying the pledges that we receive, and the pledges are the most important source of operating funds for the church. We really rely on your pledges to make everything happen. The second largest portions of revenue are both in the orange is the endowment income, and then in the gray is offering plate and non-pledged gifts. So the endowment is about 15% of our operating revenues. Paul is going to come after me and tell you all about the endowment. I'm also on the endowment board, so I'll give you a quick preview. Endowment is in good shape. It's invested, stocks and bonds and real assets. Every year we peel off between 3 and 5% of the endowment's asset value and send it to the church to fund our operating budget. So the church is extremely blessed to have an endowment. It's a really, really important source of revenues and helps fund everything that we do here. And we're really hopeful the endowment will continue to grow. Hall will tell you all about it. So okay, offering plate, non-pledged gifts. That's passing the plate. That's a couple other sources that we get non-pledged gifts from. And then the next largest is parking income. We've got this parking lot back there, and it turns out it's one of the best parking lots in the city because of its proximity to the courthouse. And so we were able to renegotiate last year, or maybe the year before, a new lease with our parking lot operator and got a little bit extra money from the parking lot this year. And then we were also lucky this year that the way we phased the construction and set up all the materials and equipment allowed us to keep most of that revenue for the year rather than filling up the parking lot with construction equipment. And so we did a little bit better. That's another reason why we outperformed on revenue, was our parking lot outperformed our expectations. So that's where the money comes from. I cannot stress enough that pledges are the most important source. So pledges, how are we looking when it comes to 2025 pledges? We're looking really good, but I will put a little note out there. Right now, 1.305, that's about 15,000 more than we had pledged last year, so that's fantastic. We've gotten 216 pledges in to date, and we had 26 new pledging households, also fantastic. But I will note that there were 232 of you who sent in pledges last year, which means there's over 40 households that have not given us their pledges yet. Now, some of those people might have left the church, they might not be with us for whatever reason, but if you haven't gotten your pledge in, it's so important. We really rely on pledges so that we can budget accurately and know what we'll be able to allocate to ministry during the year. Another great thing to note, 17% of the pledges pledges were up by 17% for those that increased, and the average pledge is about $6,000. All right, $6,000. You might be thinking, oh gosh, a 6-foot man could drown in a river that's 6 foot deep on average. So how does that distribute? This is another chart that I really love. It shows just how well distributed our pledging households are at Calvary. So the average is about 6,000. Really, over 50% of the pledges are between 1,500 and 10,000. And so there's a really nice distribution of pledges. Whether you've got a lot to give or a little to give, we've got really great participation across the board from everyone at Calvary. Okay, finally, a quick update on the capital campaign. Just a little reminder, we had $7.2 million in pledge gifts for the capital campaign, which is fantastic. Between 2022 and 2023, we collected 2.4 million of that 7.2. In 2024, we collected 3.1 million. So in total, of the 7.2 that was pledged, we've collected 5.6 million. So we're in really good shape. And this is so very important because, this year in 2024, you can look around, you can look at the room we're in, we'll hear all about it from David. We did a lot of work on the building, which means that we spent a lot of money in this year. You have to spend it as it comes. We can't send the cash to the general contractor when we get the cash. So in order to cover the gap between when we receive the cash over the next 4 to 5 years based on the pledges and when we had to spend it, which was this year, we got a construction line of credit from our bank, First Horizon. We've had to only draw $150,000 on that loan, even though we have permission to draw up to 6.5 million. That is so great because that means because people are sending in their pledges early, then we can match our pledge income with the expenses. The timing is not mismatched, and we can borrow less money, which means we'll incur less interest expense during the capital campaign period, and that's a huge blessing for the church. So, great, thank you everyone. And if you can get your capital campaign pledges in as soon as possible, that will be great. So yeah, it's fantastic. It's a really great result, and that's really all I had prepared for today. So happy to take any questions from anyone afterwards, and if you really numbers sing to you, I'll try to we can harmonize. If I just disgusted you, hopefully you'll smile at me later. All right.
Thank you, Eric. I can't believe that Judas joke has been just sitting out there for decades, and you're the one who walked into it.
I thought of it in the car this morning.
That's brilliant for the treasurer. Y'all know, in the 70s, there was a business person who started looking through the scriptures for how often money came up. 2,000 verses. It may seem to be transparent and forthright and careful with money as much as it might feel like we shouldn't talk about it. It's challenging what the Bible says about it, and we're going to hear a great sermon in a few minutes about Jubilee. But I really appreciate the care and the attention and the truthfulness with which we tend to the what we've been given, entrusted with to give back into the world. So thank you, Eric, for all your work. Now we're going to slip over to our endowment conversation, and Katie Hall, which of you Hall's going to talk? Katie has been our chair of the endowment committee, and this is a fabulous group of faithful people also who are attending.
I'm going to need
There you go.
to move that. All right, so many of you may not even know that Calvary has an endowment, and I'm not sure how that is. The endowment has been in existence since 1933. And if you walk into the bell tower, the north wall is being shown here. These are plaques with names of the original 48 people who each gave $25,000. That's $1.2 million as the original funding of the endowment. The endowment is still with us and still going strong. Your typical endowment provides an annual income to financially support the entity in which it's associated with. At Calvary, our main income is your pledges, and I want you to think of a pledge as a finite gift. It's a set amount for a set year, which forms the budget we expect it to be spent. A gift to the endowment could be thought of as an infinite gift. What we typically do is invest the money and only spend the earnings on that money. So, with that basic understanding, we're going to now review the endowment. And is it just an arrow button?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Perfect. All right.
On one foot.
Okay. Vestry designated. 7 years ago, Calvary Church received 2 significant estate gifts. Now, does anybody remember what we were doing as a church 7 years ago? Here's a hint. Scott is now with us 7 years. So, so this is post Chris Garata, and recall we had started the capital campaign under Chris, and we just decided not to pursue it. All right. So All right, and then one other technicality. These gifts were to Calvary Church. So the vestry decided we want to send it to the endowment until a viable capital campaign is possible. So the two gifts totaling about $650 went into the endowment, earned, was invested, and this year we distributed that $862,195 to was paid out in support of the capital campaign construction cost. All right, next line item, columbarium. And I am happy to announce that another phase of the columbarium will soon be under construction. So if you're interested in being buried in Calvary's courtyard, you should contact Steve Smith, the parish administrator, for the details. But generally, here's how it works. The endowment pays the construction cost to build the columbarium. We sell the niches at $3,500 per niche. $500 of that is retained by the church, and that covers the cost of opening the niche, engraving the plaque, and closing the niche. The other $3,000 goes back into the endowment to cover the construction cost and is invested so that if there's any maintenance that ever needs to be done, we have the money to maintain it. All right, to endow means to provide an income. But as you can see, our first two examples did not pay out annual income. Now, the other thing is annual income payout rates are between 3 and 5%. So the next two all of the rest of the groups pay out annual income. The next two have another unique thing about endowment, which is we receive a gift, but the giver of that gift restricts how we can use that money. So funds for the homelessness program. Margaret, I'm not sure if that's a word, homelessness, but anyway, you know what we're talking about, the ministries that we do. This is a group of funds that's made up of 4 families that gave $50,000 each and wanted the income to support the homeless ministries of Calvary. So this is annual income that offsets what our pledges would otherwise pay for. The next group, Borg Memorial Fund. The original investment was 10 parishioners who each gave $10,000, challenging the congregation to match that amount, making the original gift $200,000, with the idea 5% annual income would support Lenten preaching series with $10,000 annually. Now, here's the other great thing about it. As the funds grow, that $10,000 becomes $12,000. So that's another unique thing about endowments. All right, the last group, general endowment, and this is where gifts without restriction, other than supporting Calvary Church, are placed. This annual income is the income that Eric was pointing out, that it makes up 15% of our operating budget. All right, so the endowment is in great shape. Don't worry that the balance actually went down. That decline was in support of the capital campaign. The endowment is in such good shape that the board voted unanimously to make a lump sum gift to build the back porte-cochere. Another unique thing that happened this year is we hired an institutional investment advisor that will manage the asset allocation and implementation decisions going forward. We expect their services to achieve a more consistent and long-term results. The board is made up of the following Calvary parishioners: Katie Owen, Peg Wall, Eric Ball, Will Haley, Alec McLean, Tommy Parker, and John Petty. So, in closing, to keep the endowment in such good shape, we need to keep receiving gifts. And these gifts can be current gifts or they can be planned gifts that are set to take place at some future point in time. Giving to the endowment is not just for millionaires and billionaires. Anyone who loves Calvary can give an infinite or forever gift If you're interested in learning more about making a gift, feel comfortable asking me or any member of the endowments board. I'm happy to answer any questions. Okay, Brett.
Thank you, Hall. Thank you, Katie. Aren't y'all glad we don't have preachers managing all of this stuff? We can go and do the work we can do. Next, we're going to have Katie Leopard. We're going to turn toward the year to come a little bit, talk about Lenten preaching. I'll give you the steering wheel.
When you say the year to come, it makes it sound like it's really far off. It is not really far off. It is imminently upon us. And I am, and the clergy staff have been working really for a year. This Lenten preaching series is a year-long planning process. So after one Lenten preaching series is over, we breathe for a minute and rest, and then we do a postmortem, and then we start planning for the next year. So those of you who send me names of speakers and people that you know who you would like to invite, do it early in the year, and because we're already, booking speakers and having them placed for the next year by really early summer. So it's a year-long process. We are super excited about our lineup this year, and I want y'all to get excited too, because we really need you to help us promote. If you have social media, share the posts that Calvary will share, and we'll have yard signs later, and we have some posters today. If you'll pick them up on your way out, take them to your favorite coffee shop, ask if you can put it up, and help us promote the series. So I just want to go over our lineup for this year. I'm so excited. We have a super, super diverse, interesting group of speakers this year. I'm very excited. One thing that we've been doing, if you have noticed, is our Wednesday night Sunday school classes have been kind of a preview of our speakers. So the last couple Wednesday nights, we've been getting together, reading some of our speakers' writings, and then discussing them. So this Wednesday, I'll be talking about Jeff Chu and facilitating that class. So if you haven't come to one of those, come and get excited about our speakers. So our first two for the first week will be Paul Fromberg, who's joining us from California. He is an iconographer and a writer, very interesting Episcopal priest from California. And then Will Gaffney, who is a womanist biblical scholar. So she's done some translating of the Bible and writes a lot about women in the Bible. After that, our next week, you guys are probably familiar with Ekendayo. Very excited to have him, local playwright and activist in the community. He is very excited to join us this year. Jericho Brown, who is a poet and really interesting writer, beautiful poetry. Will be with us to share. And then Peggy Jean Craig, who was with us last year and just brought a huge crowd from her Presbyterian church that's here in Memphis. And then the week after that, many of you all might know Mahi Kim Court. She will be with us. She'll do a Wednesday night dialogue as well. She is a co-pastor with her husband or with her spouse at a First Presbyterian Church in Annapolis, Maryland, and is a published author and writer. And after that, our local professor, Nabil Blakely, is a professor of Islamic studies and will be with us. And then Kat Gordon, who has done Sunday school classes with us here and who is a local thinker and community mover and shaker, and so she'll be joining us. And then the following week, Professor Jamar Tisby, who is a New York best-selling Times author. His latest book is The Color of Compromise, The Truth About the Church's Complicity and Racism. So for those of you who've done the Sacred Ground class and other classes like that, he'll be a really interesting speaker who'll join us. And then Lillian Lammers, who's part of the Mystic, if anyone does that at Crosstown, she will be joining us this year to speak. And then Reverend Earl Fisher, who is the senior pastor at Abyssinia Baptist Church here, but is also kind of a get out the vote mover and shaker, really active in politics in Memphis, and is also just very, very, very excited to be asked to join us. And he will bring a wonderful message, I think. Favorite Barbara Brown Taylor, who was on our schedule last year, but who was ill and at the last minute could not join us, but she is very excited to be back. She will be here, and she will do a Wednesday night dialogue along with Jeff Chu. They both have parts of their theology that has to do with the earth, and getting dirty, and so they're getting your hands dirty, kind of, they're excited to speak together and then individually too. And Jeff is the speaker that will be delving into some of his works on Wednesday night this week. Do you want to come hear more about him? And then Dorothy Wells, who is the new bishop of Mississippi, and she's very excited to join us and come speak. Micah Greenstein, who is a favorite, always is so wonderful, y'all. He is probably the busiest human, and he answers emails like that. He is just on it and so delightful. Dr. Christopher Davis, who is the new president of Lemoyne Owen College, but has also been a pastor for 25 years here at Baptist Church. And then Padraig, who is a favorite and coming back to join us this year. Padraig will be doing a Thursday night poetry reading, and then we'll also speak on the final day of Lenten Preaching Series on that Friday. So I'm just so excited about this lineup. I think that's a wonderful, diverse group of speakers. There are volunteer opportunities, as always, especially with our new and improved building and wayfinding. I have a feeling that lots of people will be joining us this year for Lenten Preaching Series and will be very surprised when they walk in. And so we need greeters. You know, it's like having an open house, right? We're going to have lots of new folks joining us, and so we need people to usher people in, tell them where to go, help them find Waffle Shop, help them find the sanctuary, and then also ushers. We always need ushers, so we need 3 ushers every day and 4 greeters every day of Lenten Preaching Series. So if you're interested in that, please use that QR code and sign up. Take a poster as you leave and put it up in your favorite coffee shop. When we have yard signs, we'll let you know. Put those up in your yard. They do matter, especially if you're on Main Street, and share on social media. So we'll have a great turnout this year and looking forward to it. Thanks again.
I meant to plug both of these things multiple times, so don't forget to pick one of these printed reports. All of the staff and ministry leaders have reflected on their year together inside it. Take it with you and take your posters. I'll say it again, I hope. David Lusk is going to come. Oh, no, wait, before we go there, we want to say that Connie Marshall is our fearless leader of a Waffle Shop. She's not afraid of anything except speaking in public like this, she would tell you. She is fabulous and would rather me make the announcement that we really do need everyone's help at Waffle Shop. You know how this place comes alive, upstairs, downstairs, all through the hallways, making sure that we're opening our arms to all of Memphis, whether they've come for fish pudding or a little preaching or both. So lots of opportunities. We need waiters and servers, drink servers, cashiers, waffle cooks, sausage. There's training available, all of 401k, no, maybe not that. Everybody gets a free waffle at 10:30 if you're volunteering, and a half entree and half dessert at 1:30. So if you make it through to the end, so what could be better than that? And then there's a per diem. I hope you know this happens, that some of the proceeds of Waffle Shop, many groups and congregations will volunteer for this ministry, and we give a portion. It's a small portion, but we give it back to that church or Rotary Club or whoever it is to put back into their community for the good work that they're doing. Just a small way of honoring what this is all about, right? So spread the word, put up your poster, come volunteer, and all the thing. Oh, yes, Tom Parker.
When does Lent start?
Lent is late this year, relatively. Lent begins on March the 5th with Ash Wednesday, Lenten preaching, and Waffle Shop begin the day after, March 6th. So this allowed us a little bit of breathing room to do a little bit of work around here between Easter and this Lent. Any other? Yeah.
I have a question.
Martha.
Parking. We're promoting this for people. I know for myself personally, other than the shuttle, how is Calvary telling people where to park?
So, the question was about parking. Other than the shuttle, start with the shuttle. The shuttle is a really great way to get here easily and comfortably and to be dropped at the door. I can't overemphasize that. So at St. Mary's, they have acres of parking and not as many people who want those acres of parking, so we can get people here. The good news about this year, parking-wise, still it's downtown and we only have one lot that will likely be, depending on the day, we don't always know how many places will be available. One great piece is we're soon to have a ramp at the front of our church. which means that parking anywhere to the west of us, if you think about parking over by the Downtown Memphis Commission, is actually probably a closer parking space to our church than our own parking lot back here. So one way to start talking about it is parking on street parking and other lots around Calvary, but emphasizing that since we'll have accessibility from the front as well, you may not want it for Waffle Shop, but if you're coming to preach and then head on down to Waffle Shop, there's lots of parking that direction too. Is that a helpful at all? I mean, we're a city and it's tricky.
Some of the lots are difficult to manage, the pay lots.
The pay can be difficult. It's true. You know, you can get the app on your phone early if you can. There's a couple of them that work in town that you can use the little QR code, and if you can practice with it, it'll help a little bit. A little bit. Oh, one more, yeah.
It's close calls that people have been parking at the meters, and there's usually
Meters.
if you go beyond,
Okay.
Welcome Inn and up that way.
Look for parking meters. Okay, we're going to roll on because we got to get this, but good question. David Lusk, come talk about all of this.
Thank you, sir. All right, good morning, everybody. Yeah, remember that? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Just some reflections. With my ears, I heard Ben say embalmment instead of involvement. And we are definitely not embalmed here at Calvary. So thank you for that. And I heard us talk about a little bit about the budget. We're on time and we're under budget at this point in all of this process. So thank you very much. Endowment Committee is doing a great new set of niches in the courtyard. Courtyard's almost done, and if you haven't stepped out there, you are going to be in for a rare treat because it looks incredibly different than it did last time you were there. And finally, on Katie's and my rest of my reflections, whatever, the wayfinding is going to be easy this year. We're clear, we're bright, we know how to get around. So with that said, I have had the sincere pleasure of doing this project for the last 37 years. And it's close to the end. It's close to the end of my time doing that. So thank all of you very much on that one. I was down here Thursday twice, and Wednesday and Tuesday and Monday before that. But on Thursday, two of the contractors were sort of kneeling outside the door to the office suite. And one of them came around me and he had a smile on his face and sort of gave me a hug and said, yeah, he's praying. That's the relationship that the contractors have been with Scott and the rest of the Calvary team and with me and the rest of our committee. It has been an awesome, fun experience working with Montgomery Martin on this second phase of the project. The guys, Brett and Daniel, who run the project here, are very open to every change that we want to make every step of the way. Their change orders are clear enough for Margaret and finance to understand clearly, and their workmanship has been great. First and most important, it's just a good group of people. So we found the right team to work with all of us. We've watched it happen, and that has been a really, I think, exciting experience for everybody. I anticipated that we were going to have a closed-in hallway, and no one would know none of us would know what was going on any day. But we've had funerals down here. There have been lots of meetings going on in the midst of it. The contractors have been happy to oblige, and all of you, all of us, have seen what's been happening every step of the way. So I think we probably, I'm speaking for you, we feel like we've been part of it. Right? There are no surprises. I'm not going to be attacked for something that happened maybe later on that what somebody didn't see. So anyway, it's been great. It's been a fabulous experience. What do we have to look forward to going on? Well, 2 new restrooms outside the Great Hall. Yay, and you won't be clocked by doors trying to get into those. The Great Hall is sort of the last piece of this puzzle. Charles and Scott and I worked on an issue with the new sprinkler system up there. So if any of you saw terrible pipes going through that, wipe that idea from your memory. The pipes will not be nearly as visible as they were then. What are the other high points? Go upstairs if you haven't been, right above us. The floors have been finished upstairs. They're awesome. It's hardwood going around all of second floor. It's on the concrete of this building, so there's no creak. They feel like they've been there forever and very stable. I went into Crook Auditorium, which is the choir room, this morning. There's new tile in there. That is a much brighter space. And the ugly sound panels that have been in there are off the walls, so it is loud and echoey. And if you got kids, have them go scream in there later on this morning. Barbara, you're nodding. I hope that's a good thing in there. We'll see how that works out. Other things to look forward to, if you put your head into Montgomery Foyer up here right now, there's some of your old friends sitting around on the floor in there. The furniture, the soft furniture, that's about to be taken out of the building and recovered and cleaned up and will make a reappearance when we get to early March. So early March is very close. Thanks to Scott, another reaction to today's, thanks to him for asking that Lent be pushed back as far as possible because we need every last day of it. I'm happy later on, grab me. I love giving tours of this place, and I mean it. It's really exciting. It's good to see those nooks and crannies that we didn't expect to reuse. Bear in mind that in the whole process, the only new construction we did, the only new exterior walls were of the Bride's Walk, now probably to be known as the narthex. And if you haven't walked up and seen those windows in there and look toward the courthouse or look across the street at 100 North Main, do it this morning. And if you're staying for the late service, when the doors are open at the end of the service and you can see light coming in from the west into the church, it's really inspiring. Again, we've opened the place up. So thanks to all of you. I got some other thanks that I want to shout out. I talked about Montgomery Martin and what a great job they have done and how nice they are to work with. Mary Honey is not in here, nor is Connie, but both of them at the information desk have been stalwart in their support for what we're doing here, making sure that it's clean and going, but also just as our ambassadors to the rest of the Montgomery Martin team. That team, I know they like Mary Honey. Connie can be a bit more prickly on some issues, but all good on that. If you know her, you know she'd laugh at that too. Monica is not in here this morning, but making this place clean at a moment's notice when there's a funeral or another meeting. It's been amazing. Richard Hendricks. Richard, you're not in here. He set up 80 chairs in here today. Oh, and the chairs you're sitting in, are they comfortable? Yes. They're brand new. And who put them together? Mary Honey, in her spare time, screwed all of these chairs. And the youth. And the youth. Oh, and the youth too, yeah. Other things to look at, the desks down the office suite. Who put those together? Scott, correct. Richard. Let's see. Henry Grosvenor, you heard his name earlier, has let us use his space on the 9th floor of one of his buildings on 2nd Street. That's been easy. We're a mess. Our move into that was messy. Scott and Richard and I were over there the other day kind of moving things around. That was messy. We're almost out of there for Henry, but thank him when you see him. David Balling is not down here either, but he has worked with Scott and me and the architects to make sure that things go smoothly in this construction process. To the architects, Jennifer and Jeff, Heron and Horton out of Little Rock, wow, it was their concept to use the atrium as our central point. And if you remember the atrium when it was formerly known as the organ room, or worse yet, I got a picture of that. Sorry, I haven't been moving forward. Worse yet, that Calvary Place Playroom, it looks nothing like that right now. And I am happy to say that about it. Ray Crenshaw, her daughter Miller Cowens, Margaret Gardner, Charles Shipp, Margaret Craddock, all of us have been working on interior pieces. The plastic floor that your rector was so against beneath your feet, it's plastic, it's photo wood. Looks good, doesn't it? And it works, and that was Ray's idea. She pushed all of us toward that. So finally, you know this, we've laughed about it before. Scott has spent an inordinate amount of time making sure everything happens. He's certainly been the right person at the right time. So finally, on time, on budget, thanks to all of you.
Here, here. Here, here. Here, here. Thank you, David. We're going to celebrate this place on Sunday, March the 2nd. I'm going to put that date up here in a minute. And we're going to celebrate all these people David's talked about, that each of those people represent dozens and dozens of more who've given input, but it's been an absolutely remarkable process. And David's week, where he was here 3 times a day, was just a regular week this week. He's spent hundreds and hundreds of hours, and I'm so grateful for these people. I always like to celebrate our staff. I'm going to go fairly quickly because we have church here coming up quickly, but it's not because I don't want to spend 15 minutes with each of these people. We had some transitions. Christine Todd finally retired. She was trying to do it for about 3 years. And God bless her, the healthy ministry she left behind. Jeremy Demarest went back to his place where his heart is in Atlanta and Mercy Church. Grateful for his work with youth. And Melissa Warwell, St. Cecilia Choir, retired as well. We got fabulous folks to come in and fill their shoes. I'll mention those in a minute. And heartbreakingly, a few months ago, we lost Cassandra Booker in our nursery. She is the daughter of Robbie Phillips, and our hearts go out still to that family for the loss of Cassandra. We're grateful for her faithful ministry with our children. Y'all have a great staff. Great people who are here helping all of you do the work of God in Memphis. I'm going to say their names. Robin makes sure that people know what's going on here and that you're connected with one another in communication. She gets awards many years when she goes to the National Conference for Episcopal Communicators, including this one. Nathan Brassfield is the fool who took on 2 jobs when he came, but we're really experimenting with blending youth ministry and community ministries because they're so crucial and so volunteer dependent as well. Grateful to have Nathan here. Jocelyn Busby continues to deepen and expand and nurture our children and family ministries. Kristen Lynch continued to run all of our musical ministries while her organ is being renovated, which is a part-time job all its own. Can't say enough about the music ministry at Calvary. Monica Marshall, David gave her a shout out for all of the things she can do. Everybody had to do what they do some other way, but she had to try to keep this place welcoming and make sure the ducks were, and safe. She's our security officer as well. Mary O'Brien was our chef who kept feeding us even though she didn't have a kitchen. Peoples kept welcoming people and reminding us that this is our Christian opportunity and ministry all throughout whatever door they might have come through. And she's the only one more excited than David about the new narthex out there with the big windows. And Steve Smith, happily and patiently, has been our financial and operations officer through it all as well. Some folks who aren't full-time but are absolutely full parts of this team. Jackson Hearn, our delightful, talented associate organist and hilarious. Mary Honey, who I think is actually going to be heartbroken when this construction ends because she's made 50 friends with these subcontractors. And Connie Marshall is too. Regardless of what David said, she loves these people and they love her too. Margaret McLean is technically part-time, but she keeps our books and tends to them as a full part of our ministry here. Mary Jackson stepped into St. Cecilia Choir, and we're so great. After Melissa retired, we're so grateful to have her. And Joseph Powell is our bell ringer. Katie's doing LPS. You heard from her energy and excitement around that. Matt Clayton's our Sunday community liaison. Lawrence Ingram, a sexton, helping us keep things rolling in the kitchen with Mary. Robbie Phillips continues to run our nursery and make sure it's staffed and safe and warm and inviting for our kids. Kim Irby came on. What a delightful soul to add to our nursery crew who ministered at Calvary Place before that. And LaDorian Allen as well, who's also one of Robbie's daughters who's been a long time faithful member. These are your clergy folk, Catherine, Paul, I can't imagine, and Mimsy and Audrey, can't imagine a better crew to inspire me along the way as well. I want to lift up this guy, though, too. This has been a wild year. He doesn't like to sit down. There's a desk and a chair for him somewhere in here, but he won't sit in it because he feels best when he's on the run, moving, solving a problem, making space available to whoever might step into this place. He was here every day and more days than he was supposed to be here all through this year, with a smile on his face, solving problems, cooperating and collaborating with other folks. I just wanted to lift up Richard specifically among the staff this year for our Thanksgiving. So God, he's behind the window right there. Okay. Two more. Oh, Gabby and Zach. We also have some soon-to-be clergy, some folks, remembering that we have people in seminary training to be clergy as well. Go Calvary. I'm going to try to do this quickly, but I wrote stuff down, so I'm going to read kind of quickly. There are so many things I could say about this photograph. It's my father, if you don't know. All the people have asked where I got my fashion sense. Actually, no one's ever asked me that, but if you had asked me that, I would point that out, you know. In addition to the suit that seems to be made from upholstery material, you'll notice that Dad is striking his pose on his trusty 3-speed bike, which he rode to work just for years and years as a college prof. You can see the briefcase strapped to the back. This is actually a homemade child seat on the front, which is marginally more comfortable than sitting on the handlebars, I think, but not any safer. But there he is. I might have inherited a little bit of that. The office Dad was on his way to was in a little building someone nicknamed Catalina because it was just offshore a great big dorm called California, and I wish I had a photo of that place because it was magical. In addition to more books than I could count, there was a Nerf hoop, some thrift store, taxidermy, possibly the severed limb of a mannequin. The collection of academic disciplines there was just as wacky. Niswanger and Burnside from history, Doyle Butts from economics, Andy Bowling from philosophy, all these different folks. And Dad would ride the bike in, park it in the lobby, and sling that briefcase down the hallway from one end to the other every day when he got to work. And I've begun with this not so useful diversion because I'm coming to see that hallway might have been the most magical place of all in that building. It was this space between where all these different meetings, holy meetings and fortunate encounters took place. And I think you know about these kind of places, don't you? You know the richness of edges and borders and liminal spaces and where all kinds of people meet. And when I look back on 2024, it would make sense to describe the whole year as an in-between time, perhaps. But it would be wrong to suggest that during this largest renovation of our buildings in 30 years, we weren't fully being the church. As you'll read in the articles, again, in those printed, take them home and read them all. They're fabulous. Plenty of adaptation and alterations were necessary when we moved out of all this, but we weren't in a holding pattern. People of all ages kept singing and praying and teaching and learning, but in strange places like Welcome In for all kinds of different things, and Grizzlies Prep classrooms, and the basement of St. Mary's Cathedral. Thank you, St. Mary's Cathedral. As well as coffee shops and living rooms and who knows where other places people were meeting. I can't overstate how amazed I was, over and again, at the way Calvary staff and lay leadership and ministry leaders and musicians, how the whole congregation took the essence of who we are and what we do and kept making God's love visible in downtown Memphis however we could, in whatever circumstances we were living in. Adaptability has always been necessary. Not one of our 192 years has looked like the one before it. But this was a wild one. And as I look back on it, I see only more that this life keeps happening in the spaces in between. And those spaces are wider and brighter and more inviting and more accessible to all. You might be in a children's choir or preparing vessels for communion or serving fish pudding and salad plates or interviewing memorial site designers on Zoom from a demolition zone or making community with the young or not so young or, and this is our beating heart, gathering in Calvary's nave to say our prayers and receive the grace of communion as members of Jesus' living body. Whatever your regular vantage point at Calvary might be, 2024, in which the most radical changes were in the spaces in between, these new openings and new doorways, ramps and hallways. Individual offices got a little bit smaller so we could be closer together and closer to you, but our common table got way bigger. And a reimagined atrium became this crossroads of life at Calvary in all of its fabulous variety, reminding us that everything we do matters to everything else. And just as each body part matters to the whole person, to use St. Paul's fine old metaphor, which you'll hear in church today, or even better, a gentle reminder, or the reminder that the valley of dry bones didn't become a body until they all came together in Elijah's call. Spaces in between can be the holiest spaces of all, because it's there that we remember God made us to need each other. Interdependence is a feature, not a flaw of God's creation. Which is why, as I'm thrilled that all of these great ministries will have their own renovated spaces in the days to come, my greatest anticipations is for all the serendipity, the magic along the way that's going to happen in the hallways and the connecting spaces. All the encounters we'll have with friends and strangers in the spaces we've really just made wider and more visible so we can remember what a gift it is each one of us get to play our little part in this wild and wonderful and interdependent world of God's. So thank you, Calvary. Thank you for the full year of life we've just had together. And thank you, Calvary, and thanks be to God for preparing a way for the wonders that are still to come in 2025. God bless you all. Off we go to church, 10:15, not too bad. Don't forget, March 2nd, we're going to have a full day of celebrations and blessings and some celebrations also of the folks who've really made this happen, David and others. Mark your calendars, be with us. Paul's going to say a quick closing prayer, and then we're off to church.
Please stand as you're able. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. God of mercy and hope, we give thanks for the many blessings of this past year. We come to you with grateful hearts for all your people who share gifts of thoughtful planning, exquisite craftsmanship, and generous stewardship in the reimagination of this, your sacred space. This year, as you breathe life and spirit into this building and to us, your people, guide us in finding innovative ways to live into the mission you give us, to make your love visible in downtown Memphis, and to be a beacon of light to the world beyond. Amen.
Amen.